Call the meeting to order. I stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, and liberty and justice for all. I have one announcement. You might think it's kind of odd, but I've been odd all the years here. I want to thank not only the superintendent and all the administration, but I want to thank the students, school committee, and everyone else. We had a fantastic 2014, the vocational school did, and I just hope we can carry it on to 2015. But mostly I want to thank the teachers and the students that brought us to that point. We did great on Skills USA. Brought all our MCASs. Everything was great. And I think it was deserving that we do it publicly and thank them all. And Tom is going to send out to the Finance Committee and the Selectmen, I don't know whether you all saw it or not, but on vocational education, where it's going. He's going to be sending a little flyer out with all your packages to let you know that vocational education's on the rise, and we look for everyone's support. Thank you very much. There'll be one agenda adjustment, and we're going to have the public hearing, and this meeting is being videotaped. No executive session.
Okay. I make a motion to waive the reading of the public hearing notice.
Do I have a second? Cohasset? All in favor? Aye. Okay, I'll call the meeting to order on our budget. Turn it over to Mr. Hickey for presentation.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The vast majority of this presentation, please excuse my back. You got the little screen. You got a little screen right there. The vast majority of this presentation is a repeat from December, with a couple of slides near the end that focus the conversation around assessments. At this time, we do not have any information, any solid information about actual town assessments for fiscal 2016. So for the members of the committee, I will move at a slightly quicker pace through the slides, and then slow down a bit when we get to the assessment slides at the end. What I presented to you last month is that all aspects of our budget are based on a focus around our school mission. And so we consider that any budget statement we make includes being college and career pathway ready, that students are going to achieve competency in technical and academic standards, and they're going to develop work habits that foster independence, self-awareness, civic mindedness, and commitment to personal growth. So all of our decisions are based on that. I told you last month that for the last several years, we begin our budget process in October. Our department heads and cost center supervisors start from zero. They tell me what they're looking for. They don't pad the budget. They have robust visions for their shops and their academic departments, maintenance, etc. And we take each of those cost centers from the ground up and see what they're looking for. They're also very helpful in helping us project long-range expenses in capital, equipment, and facilities around the building. The overview of this year's budget is that we're able to continue to maintain our curriculum resources, make targeted investments in instructional technology. We continue to focus our long-range maintenance and facilities plan, so we're not keeping the building up in a crisis mode. We have plans on what we're going to do, and we're able to follow through on that. We're addressing some of the NEASC recommendations from 2013, most notably with the construction of a student-built maintenance building in the back of the school, which will be undertaken next year through the support of this budget. This budget also includes a modest investment in OPEB, other post-employment benefits, an investment in our stabilization fund to set aside money for rooftop units, and I'll talk a little bit more about that later. And we're also looking to use, for the cost of the new boiler through the MSBA's Accelerated Repair Program, to use our excess and deficiency fund for the final cost, and I'll be speaking about the boiler in a little bit as well. We try to control for cost increases through several means that I think make a lot of sense. I think long-range planning helps to control for costs. I don't have 7 shops that need that absolute big piece of equipment in the same year. People make a long-range projection, and we're able to make adjustments. I feel very good about that. Utilizing grants, we're going to hear from one of our instructors a little bit later in the meeting about how he secured a competitive grant. And grants are obviously very important to us. They help to support the budget beyond the scope of what the taxpayers and Chapter 70 money provides. As I mentioned, using our E&D account versus increasing assessments for debt service, the zero-based budgeting approach that I referred to, and something we've spent a while talking about this year, our net meter and credits agreement with the town of Situate that is allowing us to purchase their surplus solar energy and thus reduce our utilities cost. That allows us to not have to budget for the spikes in utility costs that we're all seeing in our homes right now. We rely on industry connections for vocational donations, and again, we'll hear a little bit more about writing and being awarded competitive grants. This slide's important for folks that are not familiar with a regional school district, but we incur costs that are not typically involved in a K-12 district. And so without rattling off all the numbers, the only one I'll focus on is that about a little over 15.5% of our total budget includes items that are not typically found in a school budget. Health insurance, retirement, payroll taxes, debt service, OPEB, unemployment, other insurances, snow removal. So that's something that we like to remind ourselves of as we're building the budget every year, that we do have to keep a considerable amount of money in the scope of things in the budget that does not directly have an impact on instruction. But as a standalone municipality, it's our responsibility. The overall budget proposal, we'll talk about cost headliners, I'll review some major cost areas, talk about enrollment and assessment information, and then where do we go from this January meeting? What's the next step? The headliners for this budget, if there's one tearaway sheet to kind of summarize the major talking points, proposing a 3.25% increase. The headliners include, again, a new boiler. As of a few days ago, or actually the last number I think was even earlier today from our OPM, the current estimate for what our share of the boiler would be is about $308,000. That's a little bit less, as I said, it would be less back when I was talking to you in December. The overall project is around $650,000. We're going to be building a new maintenance building in the back. Estimate of supplies and materials, construction for that would be about $190,000. If we had gone out to bid for this project, I told you last month, it probably would have been in the market around $450,000. That's one estimate an engineer gave me. So this is going to be student-built with our carpentry, electrical, and HVAC students. In terms of personnel, I'm looking for one additional position this year, and that is a paraprofessional position, what we might call a technical aide, someone who has a background in welding, in sheet metal, so that I can deploy this person into our metal fabrication, welding, and HVAC shops to support those two-person shops as they also have classroom responsibilities. A portion of the salary and benefits we could also support with one of our entitlement grants. There's a modest investment of $25,000 in our OPEB fund that has been a priority of this committee. I brought that to you last year, and we were able to sustain that. I'm bringing that same amount to you as well for this year. We have a stabilization fund that allows us to set aside money for costs that may not occur within the next 12 months. We recently obtained that through the support of our towns. This is an example of why having this fund makes a lot of sense. We have 4 rooftop units on the 1992 edition. They were manufactured in 1989. They're supposed to have a shelf life of 15 years. So we're not using chewing gum up there to keep them running, but we do have we do keep them as best we can, similar to the story I brought you on the boiler. But we are at a point where if we don't start putting some money away for an eventual replacement of one or perhaps all 4 at the same time, then we're all of a sudden managing the building in a crisis mode. So I'm looking for $40,000 to go into that fund specifically for the rooftop units on this edition here. In the realm of transportation, we own our own bus fleet. It's time for us to invest in another school bus, and that's on there along with an investment in a GPS system, a maintenance tracking system for our bus fleet. And we're estimating approximately a 5% increase for health insurance premiums over last year. So those are some of the major headliners for the budget here. You may see some of these show up on different slides because it might be a headliner, it might be in capital, it might be on the maintenance plan. So it's there because I might be labeling things a little bit differently. Capital requests are a sizable part of the budget. $419,000. This year's capital requests include a Chrome cart for the English department, the transportation items I mentioned, an upgrade in some security cameras around the building. Here's the maintenance building I mentioned earlier. We're going to enter the next phase of floor replacement in the 200 wing of the building, which is our science wing out the back past the cafeteria. And here's another capital expense we would consider a capital expense, which is the rooftop units on the roof in 1992 edition. You've seen me use this slide several times. This is a slide that shows a lot of the activity from a bird's eye view in the building here. I'll highlight a few items. The carpentry kids right now are building a concession stand. That's behind our bus cage here. The idea for the maintenance building would be here in this purple rectangle here, where we're going to pour the foundation this fiscal year. The kids will build it next fiscal year. In addition, this grassy area in front is our old leaching field. We will get rid of that this year, and after the foundation is poured, we'll go in and we'll do the paving work. So that for September, we will have our kids come back. We will have additional parking spaces, which couldn't come at a better time, eh? Yeah. Kind of crowded in the front of the building these days, and that's with no snow. I'm real excited about this project. The carpentry kids are doing an awesome job there. I've also explained part of the rationale is that with this additional space in the back, we're going to be able to make better use of this courtyard area, including no longer needing to pull school vehicles, vans for our HVAC program, electrical program, allied health, that we normally will tuck in here. We're going to figure out a better way of purposing some space out there for the school vehicles, which will also open up courtyard space for when our shops in this area do some work outside. So all of these puzzle pieces move together, and the NEASC accreditation visit, while it was overwhelmingly positive, offered us some consistent recommendations on trying to reutilize space, expand some space for storage. So I think it's important, in case of not just talking about all the pieces separately, but try to show you how it all fits together. With a new maintenance building, we will not need to use as much space in the building for maintenance storage. The basement under the 200 wing, we will not need to use that as much for maintenance storage. We centralize maintenance storage, then I'm going to be able to get rid of some of these rental units here that store vocational equipment, and I can store materials elsewhere. It'll be more efficient, it'll look better, and we'll be making better use of the available space. This is an example of what the maintenance building is going to look like. This is the existing barn out in the back, and here's what the maintenance building will look like. There'll be 3 bays. There'll be some office space for our facilities director. Right now, our facilities director shares office space in the metal fabrication and welding shop. It's worked, but we can do better, and he deserves his own space, especially if he has vendors and contractors coming in that have direct business with him around the facility. All right, let me slow down here and talk a little bit about the MSBA boiler update, because some of this information is a little bit different from the last time. So let me rewind a bit. In this current fiscal year, we set aside funds for our project manager and our designer, and they're doing their job. They're designing the new schematic plans for the boiler, and the project manager is working on our behalf to oversee the project. Those designs have to be done by February 11th and sent in to MSBA. And at the March 25th board meeting, the MSBA will vote on our project. As of this moment, the estimate on the total cost is $661,708. We will get a reimbursement rate of 54.16%. After the MSBA board votes to approve the plan, the school committee, has 90 days to secure the funding for the entire project amount. Now our plan, and I want to make sure I'm clear on this, our plan is to use our E&D account for the $308,000. But I will be bringing to you a recommendation on how we will handle covering the whole amount in terms of showing MSBA by the end of June that we have funding. Even though we're not going to have to spend all of the money up front, MSBA reimburses on a monthly basis. So this is a particularly important point as we move into having meetings with our advisory committees and our finance committees, that our goal is to not increase assessments, to not increase debt service as a result of this. We will probably be taking action on this at our April meeting, March 25th the MSBA gives it its official blessing. At our April meeting is when we would take action. And by moving money out of E&D, that will then trigger notification to our communities that we're doing this. What's going to be very important for us going forward is that we need to continue to articulate that our plan is to not increase assessments. So when the time comes that we send a letter to the Situate Board of Selectmen or the Hanson Board of Selectmen and say, we just voted to take money from here and put it in here and amend our budget, by that point they should not be surprised, because we will have clearly articulated what our plan is. But the MSBA requires that we show that we have a funding source for the full amount. Once the project gets started, we pay the contractors, we submit the bills to MSBA, and they reimburse us on a monthly basis. So I'm pleased that we're approaching it with this strategy. I would intend to bring the committee back further information on those strategies in February. Between now and our next meeting, we have a couple of advisory meetings that we're going to be going to. We're going to be the second week of February. We're going to both Situate and Whitman. So we'll be able to articulate the same message when we go to those meetings as well. So this looks good. We'll just take it one step at a time. Yeah, and we do teach kids here. Yes, we occasionally teach kids. So let's talk about kids for a moment, right? This budget, again, protecting curriculum resources. When my departments are saying we need new books, it's not last minute. So it's not entirely a surprise. So this budget includes replacement textbooks and new textbooks for biology, calculus, advanced engineering out of our science department, culinary arts, auto body, as well as electrical resources for our HVAC students. I mentioned to you last month that we have one of our electrical teachers who is teaching electrical code to our HVAC students, which will make them eligible to count their hours should they want to pursue an oil burner or refrigeration license. So it's a great integration between two of our shops. Our investments in technology, investing in Apple TV capabilities. As our teachers are more proficient with iPads, they want to be able to stream from their iPad directly onto a screen. Apple TV is going to allow us to do that. We have increases in our dues and subscriptions line for our various online support programs that we use. Study Island is a very popular one that we're using with students for MCAS support and remediation. As I mentioned before about the Chromebook expansion in the English department, which was also a NEASC recommendation. Our tech department will be replacing wireless switches throughout the building, and we're going to be expanding software and laptop computers in our engineering academy, which is our precision machine drafting and electronics programs. And as I mentioned before, also under the umbrella of technology, we have a GPS and maintenance tracking system for our bus fleet. Here's the personnel item that I already explained to you, the technical aid. And here's an overview. You'll see there are some reruns here and then a few new things. But we have a very detailed long-range facility plan. So there's absolutely nothing wrong with talking about, let's replace some grease traps, because that's what we need to do. It might not be interesting, but it's the next thing on the list. So some of the highlights over the next fiscal year from July to June. Obviously the boiler, looking to repair some of the sidewalks in the front of the building. The maintenance building I've already mentioned. We're continuing in our fourth consecutive year of renovating the classrooms in the 1962 part of the building. We're just about done. We're doing work over vacations. We're doing work in the summer. Very pleased with the progress. Painting, paving patches. We're continuing to help the front of the building by paving sections of it a little bit at a time. I mentioned the flooring and the camera upgrades and the rooftop units, and some additional money for security and signage as we try to control and help guide folks with traffic. As you know from last month and previous months, we've changed where our students are picked up in the afternoons. They're now dismissed to the back of the building and they leave around the front, which makes it a lot easier for parents. So appropriate signage helps us with that initiative. Okay, we're in about the seventh inning here, folks. So I can stretch because I'm standing up here. Let me talk a little about enrollment and assessment information. A lot of these slides, again, you've seen before. Here's a look back on our student enrollment. The big number is in-district enrollment. The small number is out-of-district enrollment. When I started teaching here 20 years ago, the little yellow number at the top was probably 75, 80, or more. And that number has dwindled over time due to the increased popularity of the school. That's great. So the number has been relatively consistent, but these are the numbers that we're going to be working on. These are the numbers that we submit to the state for this fiscal year. And here's a look back specifically by town. Towns move in cycles. If you want to focus your eyes anywhere, you can see the one-year delta here between 2013 and 2014. And we have some towns always, sometimes go up, some towns go down. The point I tried to make last month is that almost 70% of our budget, 70% of the assessments to our towns are determined by the state funding formula, what we would call the minimum contribution, where the state looks at a town's ability to pay, looking at its overall income as well as its real estate. That figure we have no control over. So the bulk of the conversation really are for those things that are beyond the minimum contribution. But as budgets grow and costs increase, you'll notice that our Chapter 70 aid has remained relatively flat. So the formula is obvious. If the state aid is flat, if regional transportation is inconsistent, and if we're going to continue to make targeted modest growth, then the system right now has it coming back to the local communities. None of us are strangers in our communities to the idea of having to make ends meet with a town budget, and we're certainly sensitive to that. So going into this fiscal year, we are assuming level-funded Chapter 70. We are not assuming that we're going to get 1 penny more than what we were given for the current fiscal year. So when we talk about assessments, which, again, that's great, Tom, 3.25%, love that you're replacing the grease traps. When are you going to tell us how much it's going to cost? As we know from past experience, this will take a little bit of time, especially now with a new governor, who has a longer period of time to submit his budget, as well as submit estimated Chapter 70 numbers. But we're going in with the assumption that it's level funded. But I think it's important to increase the level of detail we provide our towns as to how an assessment is calculated. So I'm not going to read, there's a lot of words on this slide, and this is really better to be digested, just read silently, but let me just cherry pick a few things. There are 5 elements that go into an assessment, and the one at the top, minimum contribution, that's the one I just referred to. That's the state formula, approximately 70% of the assessments. The other parts of the assessment include capital, which, as you can see, over $5,000 a unit or extraordinary repairs to the building. Operating costs, which include transportation and cafeteria, which would be beyond what we would get for regional transportation reimbursement. Debt service, so we put on a roof in 2011, and we have the figures for that. That's part of the assessment. And then other costs that are above the minimum. Any other costs to run the district that are above the minimum contribution. The last column on this chart tells you how these are calculated. This is the state formula, and the rest of this chart is based on our regional agreement, which has been in place since the school opened. So you'll be able to see that in the instance of capital and debt service, it involves a 3-year average of student enrollment. I mean, fundamentally, the philosophy is the more students you have in the building, the greater the share of these costs for your community. And that's the fundamental proportional premise we've had for all the years that the building has been open. In some cases, for instance, in operating costs, that actually is based on the most recent year, that is October 1, 2014. And same for any costs above the minimum. So let me move from a slide like this, which kind of summarizes the ingredients of an assessment, and go to just numbers and not many words. So very specifically, and this may be a reference for you talking to your communities, so when we come back to you with actual preliminary assessments, and when Jim brings that back to you later this winter, these are the figures that he's going to be using based on the previous slide in terms of enrollment calculations. So let's just take capital. So you can look at these numbers here, and those numbers reflect that 3-year rolling enrollment average that I mentioned. So in a given fiscal year, if the school committee votes a budget that has $100,000 of capital, that piece of the assessment puzzle gets filled in by multiplying the number by that figure, which is totally driven by enrollment. When we calculate operating costs, again, cafeteria, transportation, minus the transportation reimbursement, these are the figures that we're going to use. And again, just as a reminder, on the previous slide, it tells you that that's the most recent October 1 enrollment numbers. And then the debt service numbers, which are slightly different from capital because these debt service numbers are fixed based on the 3 years prior to the year in which the debt was authorized. So that, as we continue to pay down the principal, the debt service number goes down. So previous slide, lots of words, this slide, lots of numbers. But I think it's important to show that when we do bring an assessment, that we can look under the hood and we can begin to articulate and explain this a little bit more, so that even if the numbers in a particular town have some sticker shock, at the very least there's no confusion over how these numbers are arrived at. So for right now, these are the numbers we're going to be using. We should have more information between now and the next meeting on the actual assessment increases. But this is an attempt to establish a rationale for an overall budget and to show you the numbers that we're going to be using. Wrapping up here. Next steps, as I said, visits to FinCom and advisory committees. Those will be scheduled throughout the winter. We'll await to see what the Chapter 70 projections are, but we have to move forward regardless, and we're taking a conservative approach on that number being level funded. We as a committee will meet back here on February 25th, at which point there will be a certification vote on the fiscal 16 budget. And that is driven, again, by our regional agreement saying that we must have a certified budget no less than 45 days before one of our town's earliest town meetings. Okay. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman.
Does the audience have any questions? Any from the board?
Yeah, I went through this budget, and I have to tell you, Tom, at the 3.2, was it 3.25?
Yes.
You and I have spoken, you've got, I don't know how you did it. I mean, how you fit that much capital in with more dollars for capital, right, than what our increase in our budget. It's amazing, and I think you did a hell of a job. I think the zero-based budget and how you worked it is unbelievable. And I looked at the numbers and I looked at where things going, and I don't really see any movement there. And I think it's a good budget the way it stands. I mean, they have an increase in the budget of $300 and something thousand, but we'll use out of that 400 of it plus its capital. Come on, I mean, you can't get any better than that. And I think you did a great job.
Thank you, Dan, and I can tell you part of it, he works 24/7.
Yeah.
Anyone else on the board? Okay. Tim?
Motion to close the public.
Yeah, go ahead.
Make a motion to close the public hearing?
Seconded from Abington. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous? Did you have a right here, Ron? No?
No.
Okay. I had a question, was outside of this. Next item is approve the minutes of December 17th, school committee and negotiation subcommittee.
Motion.
Whitman, second. Hanson. Any discussion? All in favor? Unanimous. Student of the month, Samantha.
Samantha, if you want to join me up here. Mr. Chairman, following your theme, how you started the meeting and celebrating our students, we'd like to recognize Samantha Swanson of Rockland. Congratulations. Actually, one of the reasons why Samantha was actually supposed to join us back in December, but was busy with a fairly productive co-op placement just down the road at the prestigious Charles and David Salon, which I had to look up a little bit, and it's, I don't visit salons that often, but it's a heck of a good one. So congratulations on the placement there. Not just success in cosmetology, but Samantha has been a straight A student throughout the first trimester, and I didn't check her grades yet for this second trimester, but I'm assuming you're doing pretty well. Again, comes with great compliments from both academic and vocational teachers. So we would like to present certificate and the world famous South Shore over the back backpack. So thank you very much.
Okay,
He's the.
you gonna,
he's gonna take it,
okay,
so we can
okay,
give him a-
Student Advisory Council, Shannon?
Oh, okay. You're up. Yeah. Alright, so, the sports section, they won tonight, so they are now going to states, in the state tournament. And then the girls' basketball team, they're definitely improving, and the JV team has won a few games so far this season. But more importantly, Coach Gilmartin is not concerned about like winning and losing. He's more concerned about like building the basketball program. So that's it for sports. And oh, just kidding, I totally lied. Sorry. The hockey team is doing good. But they are undermanned, so they had 15 people on the team last week, but it's fine because they're still, going strong, going hard. That's it for the sports. But so drum club, they just started rehearsing after Christmas break, but they're going strong. They are doing the play Almost Maine, which is a series of one-act plays. Student council is selling carnations, and they're donating all the money that we get to No Child Hungry. So it's children in America who don't have enough food to eat. And we are starting cell phones for soldiers, so like gently used cell phones, we're gonna put in a basket and like donate to soldiers, and that's starting February 2nd. And BPA, Business Professionals of America, they're doing a blood drive for students and teachers February 13th. And that's it.
Thank you, Samantha.
Thank you.
Treasury report, Jim?
Thank you, Bob. In the treasury report this month, page 1 has the listing of all the cash balances. The checkbook had $17,000 in it. Our savings accounts, again sprinkled amongst 4 local banks, totals about $2.8 million. And our OPEB reserve account, which Tom referred to as the other post-retirement benefit, employee benefits and so forth. Our fund currently resides at $476,000. And again, the budget will add that, a little bit to that every year as we go forward. The revenue page, again, the assessments have all come in for the second quarter. So we're all set with all the towns that they pay their bills on a good basis, so we're doing well. One item of note is that the pupil transportation budget that we have for this year is $225,000. Again, last year with Bob Kelly, it was without knowing what it was going to be coming up during the budget process, was a conservative number. The receipt number we got from the state was about $324,000, so it was a significant increase. And then with the budget crisis in Massachusetts, 9C cuts, we were told that we were going to lose that money. It was going to revert back to what the previous year's money was, and we have never received any notification as far as what that amounted to. But we did just yesterday receive the first half of our pupil transportation money. It was about $131,000, which would lead us to believe that 262 would be the number that we were in line to get, which again is a $38,000 increase over the budget. Tom was on the phone, I believe, today with John Creed, and I guess the regional transportation number that was cut with the 9C cuts is now being restored. And Tom, if you have any insight on that.
The early indication is a favorable one that the 9C cuts are going to be restored. So we'll have to have that confirmed.
Exactly. But again, our budget number was a low number, so it's we're in a good situation there. Expenditures on the final page. Again, Kenny will talk about the warrants a little later, but the bills are being paid. There's no extraordinary items. So far through the year, we've expended $4.7 million of funds, which again is on target. We have $6.7 million remaining in the budget that has been unspent. Pat and Ed are doing a fabulous job going through W-2s today with Pat on the payroll. It's a monstrous task to make sure everything is all properly done with all the government reporting and so forth. And then there is overseeing all the budget requests and the purchase ordering and making sure every department stays in line with what their number is. One teacher did come in yesterday and wanted to know how much money was left in his budget, and I believe it was like $12.12 or something, so. He has 6 months that he needs to, stop spending, so. But overall, we're in great financial shape, for this year, so.
I have, anyone else have any questions? I have, one question, but it includes two items. County retirement, did we fund that all up front?
No, that's, for the past, number of years, it's been a 2-payment cycle. We pay once in July, and then we also pay once in December, so.
Okay.
We expended $149,000, in December, which was the second half of what our commitment is to the.
And the same goes with our insurances, school insurances on 31, Jim?
Yes, school insurances, a lot of that is, that's paid up front.
Okay, thank you.
Because all of our policies are July 1 through June 30th, so we get billed the first of the year, and we
Okay.
pay all of them up front.
So we don't have to have any real serious worry about county retirement unless we get some new employees or something that we have to put into it, or would that come in next time?
We may be billed later on after they reconcile all their county numbers,
Okay.
but right now, it shouldn't be that significant, if
Okay.
anything.
Thank you, Jim. May I have a motion to accept the treasurer's report?
Motion.
Hanover,
Second.
Whitman, all in favor? Unanimous.
With Edna on the job, there is no requirement for any budget transfers this year, this month. Everybody's in line and everybody's on target for what they're looking for, so. The third piece in your package, Tom talked a lot about the funding of the boiler, and he referred to E&D a lot, and that's our excess and deficiency number. What happens is every year, after our audit is done, we fill out a bunch of reports. We give a huge report to the Department of Education. We also give a huge report to the Department of Revenue. The Department of Revenue actually comes and visits. Martin is our auditor from the state who came down and visited with us. And they take our audited numbers and our reports, and they come up with this excess and deficiency number. Pretty much the big picture is that we're allowed to maintain a excess and deficiency account of 5% of our next year's budget, which again would be the current year's budget. So we can't keep more than that. So they come through and they audit that to make sure that our number is less than that number, and it has been for a number of years. So right now our excess and deficiency number here is $555,831. As you can see down below this letter, not only do Tom and I get a copy of it, but everybody involved in town government on the South Shore also gets a copy of this as well. So I'm sure you'll recognize some of your town's administrators and on that little email chain that went through. So as Tom talks about making knowledge of what's going on here to the town administrators, they received a copy of this back in November, so they're on board. They have a file, I'm sure, on the VOTEC, that they know what our excess and deficiency is and so forth. So, and this is just for informational piece. A couple other highlights while I have the floor. As Tom mentioned, the net metering credit agreement with Situate has been running great. As a homeowner, I'm sure all of you have recently opened up your National Grid bills and got a little bit of sticker shock.
Today.
On our calculations with National Grid, we were paying on average 15 to 17 cents per kilo. I'm not going to get too deep into the kilowatt hours tonight, but like I did a couple months ago. But we were paying 15 to 17 cents per kilowatt hour. The current bill we got, it jumped up to 25 cents, which was a significant increase over what we've been paying. Again, with our agreement with Situate, we're only paying 9 cents per kilowatt hour. So that agreement is very timely with how things are going. Again, it's working well. And as we get closer to as long as we get through the winter, we'll be able to look at the numbers and make sure that it's still a great deal, and whether the 25% credit number is usable as moving forward, we'll figure that out as well. Because right now we're sitting with because of the credits from Situate, we'll be sitting with a lot of credits on our National Grid account. And my final piece is that back in August, September, we talked about adding credit card acceptance here at the school for various purposes. Night school was able to start the whole process last week with their registration, so they are now taking credit cards, very successfully. Sue Rossi and, Steve Campbell were very excited to accept credit cards. And if you all look to your left by the cash register, there's a sign that says, we now accept MasterCard and Visa here in the restaurant as well, which officially it started today. So credit cards are available here at the restaurant as well, so that's my report.
Thank you, Jim. I don't think we need any other votes on it,
No.
those. On the credit card, will that accept the electronic pay from your iPhones?
I'm not sure. I don't think so, not yet.
It's just quite popular now.
I'm sure.
It's,
That's the cash register people, I'm not
Yeah.
Out of my realm.
It's, it just saves a lot of work too on receipts, because the iPhones and so forth have the receipt right on it when it goes through. Chairman, subcommittee reports, the only ones that I have is the, on our solar panels, we're gonna probably close that out next month. Tom's already notified the contractor that we're not going forward with our roof. It's too much of a chance, but what chances are in our new building, we may end up with some solar panels for the electricity and heat out there. We don't have any other subcommittees.
No, we don't. No, we
So
don't.
that's that. Okay, we'll turn it over to the Superintendent Director.
Me again, okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. One quick point, I wanna thank Jim for all of the legwork that he has done to bring the credit debit card option into the school. It is painstaking work, making sure that everything is precise. He's developed internal controls, very clear and transparent for all employees that are engaged in it, and I think it's gonna be a great success, and much more user-friendly for patrons of the restaurant and elsewhere, so I very much appreciate that. Mr. Chairman, my first item is a great way to start off. I'm very grateful that Vinnie Barber, who's at the meeting tonight, our electronics department head, is here. Vinnie has nearly single-handedly successfully written not one, but 2 competitive grants from the Mass Life Sciences Center. And he is here tonight because of his most recent accomplishment, which was to secure $133,000 of equipment and supplies that can be used for our engineering academy. And I'm grateful that he's here tonight, because you'd much rather want to hear it from him than me as to what the potential is for this grant award. So, Mr. Chairman, I welcome Mr. Barber.
Go ahead, Vinnie.
Hi there. Thank you for having me. Just wanted to talk to you a little bit about the grant process and the benefits that we have for the school and things to look forward to. Tom's right that we wrote a grant 2 years ago. It was $120,000. That was the first life sciences grant, and that allowed us to put some effort and some equipment into a process that allowed us to build up the engineering academy. So the engineering academy is what we use between PMT, drafting and electronics, where we have students that rotate through the different shops, and we end up building up some robots, line following robots. So, things similar to this, where you'll see that we have students that are building mechanical assemblies in PMT. They're building our PC boards on our custom manufacturing process for the boards, and drafting these all up. And we have races with these, and the kids learn a lot. And I think what's really important is that this isn't a kit. This isn't something that you bought as a kit form. Everything here is made from scratch. So these wheels, the frame, our PC board, these are all things that are very, very specific to our school, and that we build up, and that we have the ability to teach these kids this engineering process, which very, very, very few schools could do that. We also have a 3D printer, and the 3D printer allows us to build custom parts before you build them in metal. These are plastic parts, so we'll build these up. And this is a light board. So there's a lot of work that we've done already. And what this new grant is going to allow us to do is to move from prototype manufacturing to what we call pre-manufacturing, which would be the ability to build up projects that would incorporate things like thermoforming. Thermoforming would mean how you would build, let's say, a body for a car or for an enclosure for electronics assembly. So we'll actually have a thermoformer. So it's a hot sheet of plastic that gets placed on top of a mold that we can make in PMT, and it comes down, and you can make plastic enclosures. So that's one of the things on the new grant. Another thing on the new grant is a injection molder. So a plastic injection molder where we could make up things like frames, or we could make up, for instance, this is one of our projects for our next endeavor, which is going to be airships. We're going to be flying airships in the gym and having competitions. But we could make up propellers. We could make up really anything that's made out of plastic. And we can make sizable quantities in kind of pre-manufacturing or pre-production, I should say. So we have the ability to do that. And the other piece of equipment is called it's a laser cutter. And you might think about this as something that you might see in metal fab, where they have plasma cutters to cut metal. This is a laser cutter, and this will allow me to cut up to half-inch plastic and on a big bed like this, and can cut out frames, things like that, very, very, very rapidly. So one of the negative things about a 3D printer is that I can build anything I want, but it takes a long time to build it because it goes back and forth thousands of times. With a laser cutter, it's very quick. It's almost like printing something on a regular printer, and you get a flat piece of stock. So I think a couple of points is that when we do these grants, it's a lot of work, it's a lot of effort to do it, and what's really key that the Life Sciences Committee looks for is that you have support from industry. So we have a lot of support from MASA, who is from Situate, and they are actually pioneered. They're the ones who actually invented sonar back in the 1940s. So there's a lot of history, a lot of legacy involved with engineering in this area. And so they were able to help us with corporate donations for equipment and materials. We got donations from Dynisco, who's also on our advisory committee. So a lot of people that got involved with this. And it's a very good process, and it helps offset the costs that I normally have to ask Tom to help me to get to the next step where we can bring some of these costs down. It's also great for PR. Boston Globe just published an article. I think you have a copy of it. Wicked Locals coming in, I think, next week to have a discussion with me about what we're doing with the Academy. And the Boston Globe is going to follow up with another article once we start having these airship races. So, in general, it's been a nice trip. It's been interesting to be able to do this work. The kids love it. And what it's allowed us to do is really pull these three shops together that we've had issues with as far as maybe enrollment or things like that. We've been able to pull those together and get a cohesive team going. So I very much appreciate all the support that Tom and everyone's given me. And so I look forward to continuing on to the next grant.
Beautiful. Good job, Vinny.
Any questions for me?
No, but that's right, one of the reasons I wanted to have a public thank you for the students and the instructors as well. We've come a long way, and you're part of the process of making the school a great school.
Right.
And as you know, I'm a vocational grad, and not this one, but it's the best education in the world.
Yeah, I wish I knew about it when I was going to high school, because I would have definitely learned. So, thank you.
I can see Women Access Cable doing a TV show about the whole thing. Maybe even when you get the racing, flying them in the air in the gym.
Yeah.
What do you think, Kevin?
Sure.
I'm fascinated.
Yeah.
I mean, this is unbelievable.
Yeah.
I think we saw something like this at the school committee conference where they were doing.
Yeah, when there was a vocational breakout session,
Right,
yes.
and I think it's outstanding what we're getting accomplished.
Right.
And we're just getting into the industry and we're just going right after it. And I
Right.
think it's great.
Just on that point, so this is the gondola that you
Yeah.
have that it goes below the balloons, and this you're able to go left and right, up and down. It's gonna be amazing. The kids are really gonna get a kick out of it. They're gonna be learning. They're not even gonna know that they're learning. You know, that's the key point, is that you're gonna be having so much fun doing this, that's gonna come to them, you know, very, very easily. And they really learn a lot.
But this is where industry is going,
Yep.
and we're keeping up with it.
Right, we're doing Bluetooth, we're doing custom designed boards, we're doing all these things that manufacturers and prototype manufacturers would dream about, and they love our students because of it, because we're able to offer it to them. So, you know, we've had people and students that have ended up at local companies as technicians. We've had people that have gone into the military that are, you know, had to interview with admirals to get involved with the nuclear power program for the Navy. We've had so many successes at a very high level that, you know, it shows that if you put a lot of effort into something and it's worthwhile, it seems to work out.
Yeah.
But it's a lot of work and it's a lot of cost, so that's why I have to try to figure out some way to be able to help support some of these programs. And so the
That's
grant
great.
stuff, they allow us to do that.
That's great.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks,
you.
thanks, Ben,
Thank
thanks
you
very
very
much, Yep, it's a fantastic story, and our commitment to high-quality engineering education will continue, and that's part of the long-range planning process. This isn't just a flash in the pan that when these materials are spent, that's the end of the initiative, so, but it's our job to make sure that the funds continue to be there for Vin and his colleagues to continue to do their work. Mr. Chairman, just to continue, I've given to you in document 6 a mid-cycle update on my evaluation goals, as I've done in previous middle of the year January meetings. Item 3, MSBA update. I'm pretty comfortable saying that I covered that through the budget presentation, but just to emphasize, we'll be back next month with more information about strategies for taking care of the entire cost of the project so that it will eventually become a cost that we'll be able to incur out of E&D. So we'll have more to say on that. Item 4, based on committee requests for action last month, I have for you a couple of memos from Steve Campbell, our night school co-director, and also from Deb Collins relative to the possible establishment of EMT courses here. And for Deb Collins' part, looking into offering AutoCAD SolidWorks courses right after school, taught by our drafting teachers for students who are not enrolled in drafting. My takeaway from these memos, and you can certainly digest them, is that these are both viable ideas. I'm excited about it. I've asked them both to continue to pursue it, and I intend to keep you updated on the progress of both of these initiatives. And I thank you for the suggestions. Item 5, ALICE training. As I have brought to you in past meetings, it's my intent to move the district forward slowly toward a plan to train students and staff in September in a new protocol for handling lockdowns. And over the February vacation week, Mark Aubrey and 2 instructors are going to go get some training that the Holbrook Police Department are putting on. And so we'll be able to debrief with you on how that training goes. These are the key point people in bringing this initiative back to the building. Last week I met with our Parents Association, and as an agenda item I was able to articulate to parents what's the difference between a more proactive, empowering approach with lockdowns, where you might end up challenging an intruder versus just a passive sit in the corner approach. So that was a great opportunity, and I told the parents at that meeting that there would be further communications. So we're going to involve all the stakeholders in the conversation. We're going to keep the conversation, even at the risk of being repetitive, so people understand what this is. There are many other districts in the area that are proceeding along the same route. Mark and his team will get trained in February. I'll be inviting Chief Sweeney from the Hanover Police Department to come to a future school committee meeting, so that, because he is obviously a key person in any type of a crisis incident, as we're all Hanover residents for 7 hours a day, regardless of where we go home at night. And these folks are extremely cooperative. I can't say enough about how wonderful it is to work with them. And so Larry will come and join us at a future meeting where he can give a law enforcement perspective on this initiative. Later this spring, we will get some direct training, and I say we, the next larger group of we would be the rest of the administrators, members of our crisis team, probably including some custodians, facility director, myself, guidance counselors. We'll get some training before the end of this school year, and then we'll position ourselves to do staff training at the beginning of the school year in September, followed by the students. And by that point, we should be very saturated with the strategies that we're gonna undertake. So again, know that I'll bring this back to you for regular updates and eventual discussions.
Thank you.
Items 6 and 7 is just to inform you of a new calculus book. Item 7 is the second reading on Enrique's journey from the English department. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, and we don't have unfinished business. I'll turn it back
Okay.
over to you.
We don't have any public hearings gone. New business, we gonna do anything on that?
If you don't mind, I
Yeah,
could.
this is the same type of grant for that our boiler was under, that we voted, I think, to let Tom go forward with the search, and he has some more information he's gonna give us, but he'll fill us in, but we're not gonna do much on it tonight.
So, Mr. Chairman, if I may just briefly on this?
Go ahead.
Okay, thank you. So what I would be looking for tonight is simply a vote to authorize me to submit a statement of interest to the MSBA's core program. Totally separate program. This is the program where schools get new additions built and major renovations that go beyond roof, window, and boiler. It's a lengthy process, and it will take a few months to put the statement of interest together, but the MSBA just recently opened the window for fiscal 15 submissions. So what I'm looking for tonight is merely your authorization to proceed.
And I'll take a motion
I'll make
to
that motion.
to move forward. Second,
second.
Hanover. Any objections or comments? All in favor? Unanimous?
Thank you.
He says we have time to do it, but reading the deadlines on it, he's gonna be pushed on some of the deadlines. Surplus declarations.
I'll make the motion that the items listed, the TV, VCR stand, and the, look like old computers, the 4 of them, be declared surplus.
Second,
I'll second that.
Whitman, discussion, none, all in favor? Unanimous. Warrants, Mr. Cohasset.
Warrants for approval, warrants 12 and 13, totaling $1,086,275.06.
Second, Whitman, further discussion, all in favor? Okay, Jim, you can release the paychecks.
Thank you.
Any requests for actions? Seeing none, I'll take a motion, usually Whitman.
With all due respect, yes. Hey, you want
Second.
6 cents?
Motion to adjourn is not debatable, all in favor? Unanimous. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you.